Hi, I'm Shelley Poindexter, and I wrote this poem for our assignment, and here it is. We just read together how people who looked like you were your ancestors and quite possibly your grandparents too, were enslaved, murdered, raped, and hung just for being black. And that still today there is a caste system where your full humanity is under attack. My chest feels tight. I feel upset and sad. Will you comfort me? Tell me that I'm not bad? Will you reassure me that just because I am white, I'm not responsible for all that? Oh, wait. Take a moment. Breathe in. Count to 4. Hold in that oxygen. Hold it for 4 more. Now exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it again for 4 more. This box breath helps me to move past my guilt and my shame, to see beyond myself and my emotional pain. I breathe and I turn. I begin to see you. I realize this reading is affecting you too. May I ask, how did reading that make you feel? Do you need a break? Want to go for a walk? This is a big deal. Where do you see the effects of this still today? How has it affected you, your family? It's not okay. Today I will stay present, listen deeply, and remain curious. I will make space for your thoughts and ideas and take your concerns serious. And when I start trying to fix, seeking once again to be the center of the story, please remind me that you too are strong and come from a long line of resourceful people who already have a savior. I am a 52-year-old white woman of Dutch descent. I live in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which is very rural and predominantly white. Last weekend, I was working at a junior high retreat at a Bible camp. One of the leaders that came with their youth group was an African-American woman that was older than me. I introduced myself and struck up a conversation with this woman by asking where she was from and what it was like now to live in Madison, Wisconsin. She exclaimed that it was really hard, as these days racism abounds. I empathized and felt quite like our quite long conversation went very well. I went away feeling good that I had challenged myself for engaging her, despite it being a bit uncomfortable because I might say the wrong thing. We talked several more times throughout the weekend, and she even came to me for prayer during our worship service. I felt very honored by that. However, when I reflected back on our conversations as I read our class material, I realized that so much of what that conversation was me talking about the different things I had read and I had done that would prove I was an ally. I spent very little time being curious and asking more about the racism that she had said she was facing in Madison. The patting myself on the back session stopped. I am frustrated that I'm not further along than that in my racial, ethnic, cultural identity development. This poem came out of that experience and was also inspired by a response to my week 2 post on an early adulthood experience I had in Seattle. The person responding reminded me that the deconstructing experience that had caused me great emotional pain and lots of tears must have been quite hard on my Hawaiian friend who had been discriminated against. It was a punch in the face, as I realized I had never considered how hard that was on her, but had only felt bad for myself for being identified with the oppressors. Then as I read caste, I thought about how insane it is that I want Black and brown people to comfort and validate me, and that when I do that, I am still placing myself at the center of their story. I put the whole exercise of box breathing within the poem, as I love to teach social and emotional learning, and I think this exercise really does help us ground ourselves, stay present, and engage as better listeners, not just reacting out of our trauma and big emotions. I realize that my gaze has got to turn from myself to how things are affecting those around me. As an only child, I have to remind myself that things are not always about me. I have been the center of attention most of my life. My 6-foot-tall body, which helped me to play basketball, run marathons, and triathlons. My role as pastor's wife, being a college graduate, and being in a situation of greater power than I was ever comfortable with as a social worker, have all made me a person that is seen and heard often and above the voices of many of those around me. When I speak, I expect to be heard. And when I'm not heard or the response is unfavorable, I have a tendency to have a meltdown. I realize that I now have the opportunity to take up less space, talk less, listen more. By listening first to myself, I can take care of my own needs rather than expecting someone else to take care of me. I can then listen and care for others, looking to their needs and seeking their flourishing, as I believe is what a good leader does. In order to live into this opportunity, I need to seek out community that is diverse, that I might seek direction and accountability to keep growing rather than reverting back to my egocentric ways.